Back here on NFL Fantasy Live, time for a weekly look at Michael F. Florio's starts and sits. If you want to see the full list, go to NFL.com/start and sit because he works very hard on it to get your lineup correct. So why not go? We got something for you right here. We'll start with the running back position. Who we start?
Look, these shoes are Ashton Gente's shoes. They don't give shoe deals, especially ones this loud, to players who are not good. So I promise you, Deuce, as he's called, is a very good football player. We just haven't really seen it yet because his O-line has done him no favors. It's over half of his carries he's getting hit behind the line of scrimmage. Well, this week, he gets the Bears, who have allowed a league high in yards before contact to running backs. I also think, that run last week, we saw him look more and more comfortable last week. He had his first two runs of over 15 yards. And the Bears, they've also just allowed the most rushing yards in general to running backs. So I would start Gente this week, and I think your buy low window is going to close if he has the game like I think he will have. And then the other start this week is another rookie. You're going to notice a theme. I think week 4 is the week that this rookie class breaks out. I have 5 rookie running backs in start and sit 'em alone. Judkins last week took over this job. He dominated volume. He had over 100 yards and a touchdown. And what's most impressive is it came against the Packers defense, who had been shutting down big running attacks so far to start the year. The Lions are tough, but they do allow a lot of explosive runs. And I think we're going to see Judkins more utilized in the passing game as he gets more comfortable because he was away from the team all summer. It's easy to get involved in the running plays. The passing will come after that.
Yeah, Quinshot making a case for just showing up.
Yeah,
at the final moments and getting in and playing the NFL game. It's wild. If we got these rookies going to starting position, I'm assuming that there's a veteran that's going on the bench.
Yeah, and it's a veteran who won a lot of you leagues on Monday night. David Montgomery. And I know a lot of you are like, what? How can I sit him after the game he just had? The numbers were huge. The usage was not. And that is a bit concerning. But even more concerning is the matchup against the Browns, who I would say are the best run defense in the NFL. They average a hit on the running back nearly a full yard behind the line of scrimmage. And that's average. They held Jacobs to 30 rushing yards last week. They held Henry to 23 the week before that. And you can't rely on the pass game usage to save the day for David Montgomery. So if you don't get a touchdown this week, which is not something you should count on against the Browns, you're probably looking at single-digit fantasy points.
Yeah, the Browns defense is kind of ruining fantasy weeks week after week. Let's go over to the wide receiver position. Who's on the good side?
Another rookie look. You see this shirt? No, I'm just kidding. Matthew Golden doesn't have a clothing line deal yet, but maybe he will after this week. I think this is going to be the Matthew Golden breakout week. Last week, Golden took a really big step forward that I think is going under the radar. He played over Dontavian Wicks. He was number 2 in snaps and routes for their wide receivers. He led the team in receiving yards, and now he gets the best possible matchup for receivers. The Cowboys have allowed the most fantasy points per game, yards, and touchdowns. They've allowed more than double the yards on deep passes to wide receivers than any team in the league. So I think this is a week where Matthew Golden breaks out on the biggest stage on Sunday Night Football.
All right, let's go over to the sits at the wideout spot. Who's going on the bench?
T. Higgins. Look, it's not you. It's your quarterback and your opponent this week. Like, Jake Browning has 5 interceptions in a game and a half, and he hasn't thrown for 200 yards. So naturally, there's fewer chances to get yards and touchdowns there. T. Higgins last week had 2 targets and 1 catch, and even including the game he played with Joe Burrow, he's averaging just 35 yards per game. Not enough production to trust against this Denver secondary, considering they've allowed a 56% completion percentage on passes to wide receivers. They got Surtain, all of that going. I would look to get away from Higgins on Monday night. And then Thursday night, on another big stage, I'm looking to get away from Marvin Harrison Jr. He's averaging less than 6 targets per game to start the year, which is super frustrating considering he had 6 targets or fewer in over half his games last season. They're just not getting him the ball like we want. Now he has a short week against the Seahawks, who Harrison has never scored a touchdown against or topped 50 yards. And Seattle's better this year than they were last year. They are allowing the second fewest yards to out wide receivers, which is where Marvin Harrison runs about 80% of his routes from. So not the production we were hoping for when he was drafted number 4 overall.
Yeah, and right there in that tape from last week, there were a couple of drops.
Yeah, that one hit him in the chest.
Yeah, probably bothered fantasy managers a little bit, but sometimes the things we see on the field aren't exactly how we should feel about them fantasy-wise. Let's get over to Adam Rank upon further review.
All right. Thank you, Patrick. It is time for Upon Further Review. And we start today's segment with a player who has been one of the most talked about wide receivers in the fantasy community over the last couple of years. And of course, I'm talking about Marvin Mims Jr., a player that we've all wanted to become a thing. We've wanted this to be the next great wide receiver. We have begged, we've implored Sean Payton to go out there and make him a big part of this offense. And when you see him go out there and make tremendous plays like that, you're tantalized by the talent. He scored 6 touchdowns last season. As a matter of fact, he's had 5 touchdowns in his last 5 games. But upon further review, when you really drill down, he is top over 3 fantasy points in only 1 game this season. So as much as we like him, as much as I said, it's kind of like the movie San Andreas. As often as I will tell you, it is one of the greatest movies of all time. The rest of you have just not been on board with it, and Sean Payton certainly is not on board with it either. Now, the other example this week is somebody who has gone the other way, somebody that fantasy managers have avoided, like a hot dog from 7-Eleven. Unfortunately, this guy has been pretty good. And we're talking about Chris Olave, who has been a target machine for Spencer Rattler and the New Orleans Saints this season. He leads the NFL with 37 targets. He is tied for 5th in the league with 4 end zone targets, a number that would be much higher if, Spencer Rattler could get him near the goal line. However, you can't ignore the usage. And I know coming into this season, we have all put a lot of New Orleans Saints on our do not draft list. However, I am going to ask you to take a further look. And upon further review, Chris Olave is somebody who should be in your lineups moving forward. And that was it for this week's edition of Upon Further Review. Now, coming up later on NFL Fantasy Live, we are talking about rookie running backs. Can we trust them? They have been breaking our hearts so far, but this might be the week that we can get them into their lineups as long as they stop doing that, fumbling the ball, running into the line of scrimmage. We are going to break it down coming up next on NFL.
Also, right now, we're going to look at more of Michael F. Lorio's starts and sits. Go again to NFL.com/startsits on your internet device of your choosing. But right now, while you watch us, we are talking about quarterbacks who's starting this week.
Love wins from Dallas with Love. There's something. All I know is you're going to love your lineup if you have Jordan Love in it this week, because every quarterback who has faced the Cowboys this year has scored at least 24 fantasy points. Russ scored 30 and was the QB2 in week 2. Caleb got a career best 29 and was the QB1 last week. The Cowboys, they've been torched through the air. On the deep ball, they're not generating pressure. I wonder if maybe they had Micah Parsons, if that could help them. And then Jordan Love plays his best in the big moment, averaging 23 fantasy points per game on Sunday Night Football. And earlier you heard Rank talking about how Marvin Mims, there was a lot of production left on the field. That also counts for Bo Nix, right? Like, he didn't have that huge fantasy game that you wanted, but you realize if he connected on 3 deep balls, he probably is the QB1 on the week. All 3 of those just missed being long touchdowns, but I do think we will get a better day here from Bo Nix. The Bengals, they allow the 8th most passing yards and 5th most touchdowns, and they don't really get after the quarterback at a very high rate. So I think Bo Nix, this is a week on Monday night where he could kind of bring you back if your fantasy team is behind and pick apart the Bengals defense.
All right, so what I'm getting out of those is the defenses on the other side are a bit of the issue. Is it the same for the person you have sitting this week?
Very much so. Dak Prescott in the same game as Jordan Love, because that guy Micah Parsons that I talked about, yeah, him and that Packers D-line is going to be fired up to chase down number 4 in this one. But it's not just that, right? His only big game for Dak fantasy-wise this year was week 2 against the New York Giants. Plus, no CeeDee Lamb in this game. The Packers have allowed the 6th fewest passing yards and only 3 passing touchdowns on the year, the same number that Dak has. So I know we are expecting Dak to be usable more often, but this is a game where I think you play it safe and you get away from it.
Yeah, you can help Dak by giving him the Micah Parsons tribute before the game. Jerry Jones says that they're not, so now Micah's going to try extra hard.
Why would they,
It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for Dak Prescott. Let's go to tight ends. Who are we starting this week?
Tyler Warren, I'm calling my shot here. I think the big Tyler Warren breakout game, like we've seen the safe floor already, but that big like Brock Bowers, Trey McBride, George Kittle day is going to come this week. Look, our producer Alex Wilk is a huge Rams fan. He will tell you that the best Rams game ever is Baker Mayfield on Christmas Day.
Which is fraudulent, by the way.
He'd also tell you that they struggle against tight ends throughout the Sean McVay era. They allowed the most fantasy points per game to the position last year. Dallas Goedert had them for a big day last week. And the Colts, they're going to need to put up points with the Rams offense on the other side. So more throwing means more yak opportunities for the big rookie there. I think his breakout comes. And then Dalton Kincaid. Look, it's been going under the radar, but Kincaid has been the Bills' top target 2 weeks in a row. And if you go back to last season, early in the year before he was hurt, he was often the top target for Josh Allen. And the Bills, they're just not airing it out much. One pass of more than 10 air yards last week. Instead, it is leading to more catch and run stuff, which really suits Kincaid. He's topped 14 fantasy points in 2 of 3 games. And this is a matchup like last week where they don't create a ton of pressure. I expect Kincaid to get a couple of catch and run opportunities.
In defense of Alex Wilk, he said it was a top 10 Sean McVay game era. But he's also a Ben Skoranek denialist, but we'll get past that. We'll go over to the other side. Let's look at some guys that are going on the bench.
David Njoku. I had a lot of hope for what Njoku could be, but I thought maybe this offense would hold him back. It's not even really that. What do Jonnu Smith, Noah Fant, and Chigakonko all have in common?
What's that?
They have more fantasy points on the year than David Njoku, who has yet to reach double digits in any game this year. 40 yards or fewer in every game. I know you just saw Mark Andrews go off against the Detroit Lions, but going back to the start of last season, they are maybe the hardest matchup for tight ends, with Harold Fanta Jr. there getting so much usage, the Browns spreading the ball out a lot and looking to run it as much as they can. I think you could get away from David Njoku this week.
All right, and interesting. Considering the way that he and Flacco have played in the past.
Yeah.
Harold Fannin has come over and taken all the targets at the tight end spot. We got more to come, including a look at your daily fantasy lineups, as folks, some options are really, really good bargains. Does this video give it away with one of the tight ends? Maybe, maybe not. We'll tell you coming up on NFL Fantasy Live.